I never imagined I'd be the woman with a story like this. I used to think betrayal happened to other people on movie screens, in dramatic novels, or in the articles you skim over while sipping coffee. But then it happened to me when your world cracks open, when the foundation you built your life on collapses. You're left with two choices: fall with it or rebuild from the ruins. I chose to rebuild. But not before I took back every piece of myself he tried to bury. I met Samir when I was 22. He wasn't the most handsome man in the room, but he had a quiet confidence, a charm that made you feel like the only person that mattered. At that age, attention felt like love. Okay? And I mistook it for just that. We married 2 years later. It was a small ceremony, nothing extravagant, but I was glowing. My parents said I hadn't looked that happy in years. The early days were sweet. Modest apartment, entry-level jobs, simple dreams. I edited content from home, and he managed field operations for a solar company. We were building something, or so I thought. Looking back, the cracks were there. They always are. Hairline fractures you ignore until they split wide open. He was often distant, irritable, withdrawing into corners of his life where I was no longer welcome. I assumed it was work stress. Then I assumed it was me, that I wasn't enough, that I wasn't doing enough. That's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't strike like lightning. It seeps in like a slow toxin, rotting your self-worth before the truth ever reaches the surface. It began with little things. Unfamiliar numbers on his phone, calls he took outside, suddenly locked devices. "It's just safer," he said. When I asked about the new password, I believed him, or maybe I wanted to. The late nights started soon after. "The company's expanding," he said. "More clients." He came home smelling of unfamiliar cologne, smiling at texts I never saw. Still, I said nothing, told myself I was imagining it, that I was insecure. Then one night, his phone vibrated while he slept beside me. I'd never gone through it before. But that night, something inside me snapped. A message preview flashed on the screen. "Last night was perfect. I miss you already. Rahim, electrician." My hands went numb. I opened the thread. Photos, voice notes, plans, months of conversations. He wasn't having an affair. He had a second life. And the worst part? He looked so peaceful, so guiltless, sleeping beside me. I didn't wake him. I took the phone and sat on the balcony until sunrise, listening to the silence that screamed louder than any confrontation ever could. By morning, I had made a decision. I wouldn't just walk away. He had lied, humiliated, and disrespected me without a flicker of remorse. If he was going to play me, I would play smarter. I started documenting everything: screenshots, patterns, her identity. Her name was Sana. Flashy, loud on Instagram, the kind who posted quotes like, "I get what I want." Funny, for someone sleeping with another woman's husband. But I didn't hate her. I pitied her. She owed me nothing. He did. I reached out to a lawyer friend. Quietly asked about digital proof, asset splits, legal protection. I built a wall around myself brick by brick. And somewhere in that quiet plotting, I found myself again. Updated my resume, applied for full-time editorial jobs, stopped asking for his opinion, stopped needing his approval. A few weeks later, I got a job offer from a publishing house. It's a good one. I accepted it without telling him. It's the same week. I legally moved half of our savings, my half, into a separate account. He still had no idea I knew. So I tested him. I need to travel for work. 2 days, I told him I didn't go anywhere. I stayed at my friend Nidida's place and I asked her to watch the house. 12 hours later, he brought her over too. My homer bed, Nidida sent me photos. Video. Even I wanted to vomit, but I also smiled bitterly because now I had all the proof I needed, not just digital messages, but physical evidence of his betrayal. I returned home as if nothing had happened. He was unusually sweet that evening. I asked him how his day had been. He led right to my face about how tired work had made him. I nodded and served dinner. He had no idea the storm I was about to unleash But not yet, not that night back as I wanted to hit. Where? It would hurt the most: his pride, his peace, his reputation. And so I waited the morning after I served him dinner, the same dinner I made with hands that trembled with quiet rage. I stood in front of the mirror and stared at myself, not to cry, not to pity, but to remember the woman I was before him, before the lies, before I allowed my loyalty to become my prison. And he promised that reflection, something simple but powerful. I will not break, I will not beg, I will win. In the days that followed, I acted like nothing had changed. I kissed him goodbye in the morning. I asked about his day when he returned. I listened to his made-up stories, each one more creative than the last, and each lie added another brick to the wall I was building between us, one he wouldn't see, until it was too late to climb out of. I began visiting Santa's workplace, not to confront her. No, that wasn't my style. I observed. I studied her routine, learned which days she worked late, when she left for lunch, where she parked her car. She was predictable. She was careless, and, most importantly, she had no idea existed, least not as the woman whose life she had invaded. One day, I slipped annually printed envelope under her windshield wiper. It contained nothing dramatic, no threats, no insults, just 2 photographs, one of her and Samar entering our apartment, and one of me in a wedding dress, smiling beside him. The day printed at the bottom of the photo said everything. I didn't need her to call me. I didn't need a response. I needed her to feel something. Close to hot, I had felt the creeping realization that everything you believed about Saman might have been a lie. Later, that evening, he was quiet, restless, checking his phone every few minutes. I saw him delete messages. I saw his jaw tightened when I asked him if he was okay. Had given me the same casual, just work stress. I nodded, serving him tea the same way. I had served a years of loyalty to Amanwo, saw it as a weakness. Meanwhile, I was quietly building an empire out of the ashes he left behind. My new job was going well. I had been promoted to assistant content manager, started speaking at editorial conference, writing under my name again. My voice, once swallowed by a relationship where only his needs mattered, was echoing across rooms, across platforms, and people were listening. The more I grew, the more he shrank. His busness began to suffer. Contracts fell through. Started borrowing money from her joint account more frequent liasming. I wouldn't notice, but I did. I had already moved my finances elsewhere. Every rupee he pulled from that account was a note and a symphony of self-destruction. He was playing for himself. Then came the day I had been preparing for. I printed out every piece of evidence, every screenshot, video, bank transfer, deleted message. I compiled it all in a neat binder labeled Simply Truth. That evening, I cooked his favorite meal, dressed nicely, lit candles. He walked in, surprised but pleased. He sat down, flattered by the attention, unaware what was about to hit him. I placed said binder next to his plate like it was dessert. "What's this?" he asked, amused. "Open it," I said calmly. He did, and ash flipped through page after page. His foods drained of color. His hands began to shake. He looked at me like he had seen a ghost. "Where did you get all this?" he whispered. "I didn't need to get it," I said. "You handed it to me, every lie, every secret, every mistake. You laid them out for me like a trail. I just followed it." He tried to speak, but I held up my hand. "This isn't a conversation," I said. "It's a conclusion." He stood up, suddenly furious. "You were spying on Om." "No," I said coldly. "I was protecting myself." "There's a difference." He tried to apologize, to justify, he said. Things like, "It was just a mistake and I didn't mean to hurt you." But the thing about betrayal is that it isn't just about the act, it's about the choice. He had chosen someone else over and over again. He had chosen to lie when he could have told the truth. He had chosen to break the vows we made together, and Noah had to live with the consequences. "I'm leaving," I said. "And you're not going to stop me. The apartment is in my name. The bank account is empty. And your reputation, well, I'm sure your colleagues will be interested in what you've been up to." He stared at AMM in disbelief, as if the woman standing bare him wasn't the one he thought heckled manipulate forever, but that woman's naive, trusting, silent wife was gonna nigh. Left that night not in tears, but with my head held high. I moved into a new apartment closer to work. I furnished it myself, every piece a symbol of my freedom. I painted the walls in colors he never liked. I played music he always complained about. I laughed louder, slept better, lived fuller. He tried to contact him at first with apologies, then with casual, then with desperation, but he blocked every number, every email, every attempt. He even came to my office once pleading. I had security escort him out in Santa. She left him to apparently aunts. The illusion cracked sheet in want. The mess underneath, he lost us both. I didn't do it to ruin him. I did it to reclaim himself. In the months that followed, he started sharing my story. Anania Milesley and long women from around the world reached out, some with similar story sitters just seeking strength. I released that my pain had become my power. Thoughts truth once faced didn't break me. It belulled me. Now, a year later, I stand here not as a victim, not even as a survivor, but as a woman who took back her narrative, who didn't betrayal into brilliance, who didn't just move on, but moved up. And yet there's one part of the story left to tell. The part where I face him one last time, not out of revenge, but to show him what real power looks like. That moment came unexpectedly, and it changed to everything. I thought I was done with him. Truly, I had walked away, built a new life, flourished in ways I never thought possible, and yet life has its own poet to mean. It was almost a year after I left that I got the call, not from him but from an old mutual friend. Adil, Samir's in trouble, he said quietly. Didn't react, I just asked, why are you yodeling me this? Because you should see it for yourself. Against my better judgment, he agreed to meet, not for him, but for me. Closure. Real closure doesn't always come with silence. Sometimes it walks right back into your life so you can look it in the eye and know it no longer controls why. Walked into the cafe 30 minutes, latter dressed in a way that made me feel powerful, but no theatrical. A deal was already there. Heslod, a manila folder across the table, without a word inside, printed articles, a lawsuit, debt notices, and a typed letter from Samir's company terminating his employment. He had been caught misreporting expenses, lying to clients. His personal issues had spilled into his professional life. And just like that, the dominoes had fallen. I exhaled slow. He's staying in a rental now. Adel said no job, no savings. His family doesn't want to be involved. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel sorry either. What I felt was done with a ghost off. The man who once shared my home, my dreams, my bed. Then Adil added something that shifted everything. He wants to see you. I shook my head no, but that night I couldn't sleep, not because I cared, but because part of me needed to face him one last time on my terms. No fear, no hurt, no rage, just truth. So I agreed. 1 hour in a public place, no contact after we met in Thepurk. Late afternoon, he looked thinner, more tired, but the thing that struck me most was how small he seemed, not in size, but in presence. The arrogance, the smirk, the easy confidence, all gone. Thank you for coming, he said softly. I didn't answer. I just waited. I messed up, he said. I lost of everything still. I said nothing. I had waited too long to let him narrate. Themaman. I think about what I did every day, he continued. You were good to me. I destroyed that. I ruined something pure. He looked at me expecting something. May forgiveness, maybe a breakdown. Butal I gave him was honesty. No, I said, you didn't ruin something pure. You exposed something fake, and I thank you for that. He looked confused. Because you broke the version of me that tolerated lies, and from those pieces I rebuilt someone you were never worthy of. I could see high size glisten, but I didn't flinch. I don't hate you, I added. I don't think about you. That's the real end, Samir. Not when someone walks away, but when you become irrelevant to the life D found after you. He tried to reach for my hand and I stepped back. You don't get to touch me anymore. Not out of guilt, not out of nostalgia. You gave up that right themament. You brought another woman into my home. He dropped his hand. Do you ever think we could have fixed it? No, I said, simply because you didn't break a cup you shattered trust, and trust Samarizan glued back its rebuilt, I'll swear. He looked at me one last time, defeated. I turned and walked away. I didn't look back because in stories like mine, the real revenge isn't anger, it's shielding. Showing the person woathed they broke you that you've a beak someone they no longer recognize a ministern. From that day on, I never spoke about him again. He became a closed chapter, one I used to reread out off habit, but now no longer needed. I focused in my career, my community, and eventually my own advocacy platform. I started a blog that helped other women share their stories safely. Anonymous, slightly silent, no more, became a small but growing community of women reclaiming their power through word stories poured in tales of betrayal, survival, strength, some raw, some poetical, real. I learned that revenge doesn't always look like burning bridges. Sometimes it looks like building new ones. They can never cross. Eventually, I met someone new. A Manwo didn't complete me, but respected me. We took things slowly. He knew my past and never judged it. When I told him I would never tolerate secrecy, never sacrifice my voice again, he simplinated and said I'd expect nothing less, swear, not married, and maybe we never will be, because I've learned the only commitment that matters is the one you'll make to yourself. To never settle, never silence your instincts, and never forget your worth. I share this story not for sympathy, not even for applause, but for that one woman reading it in silence, wondering she's crazy for suspecting, weak for staying, or lost for loving. You're not. You're strong, and the moment you decide to reclaim your power is themament. Your story begins again, not with heartbreak, but with hope. Because I was her once, and now I am mine.